Brian, happy becoming legendary.
Yes, happy becoming legendary to you too, my friend.
This week, or this episode, we spoke with Natalie from The Durable Athlete and had a pretty fun time.
It was an interesting conversation. We were able to push back on a few of the topics that were brought up, and her education, her knowledge, and just her passion for what she does really kind of shined out. There was it turned into this kind of organic conversation with all three of us participating in a beautiful way.
Yeah, I liked conversating with Natalie. And on that subject, sometimes I've lied to you. Sometimes I've said, hey, this is a really good conversation, but it wasn't.
Facts.
And we recognize that. Brian and I have talked about that. And we're not going to do that anymore. So if there's a conversation that doesn't work, you're never going to hear it. So our promise going forward is if we put out a conversation on becoming legendary, it's going to be worth listening to, and it's going to be a good time. Fair?
Fair.
Heck yeah. All right. So without further ado, let's get to becoming legendary with Natalie from The Durable Athlete.
There are no gold medals for down dog.
Maximize every opportunity so that you can become legendary.
What adjustments can you make right now to make yourself 1%
Your
better?
only goal is to be the best version of you.
Natalie, welcome to Becoming Legendary. How are you today?
Hi, thanks for having me, y'all. I am doing awesome on this Friday. It is a beautiful day here in Austin, Texas. Starting to heat up, but I'll welcome it. I'm ready to get outside and in Barton Springs here, get in the water and stuff like that. So just really enjoying this Friday afternoon. How are y'all doing?
Heck yeah.
Yeah, doing good. I finally heard that y'all. That's that Texas drawl coming out finally.
Yes, that is definitely within me. Yeah, born and raised in Texas, so a lot of y'all.
That's fair.
Can you give us like a quick little window glimpse into your world, who you are, and just kind of try to catch our audience up to you?
Yes, I will try to make it quick. I am Natalie now Placencia. Got married in December. My husband and I actually own and run our business together. We own a business called Durable Athlete. And it originally started as us being personal trainers. And it grew into us then going into fascial stretch therapy as well as personal training, and really specializing in durability and mobility training and getting people out of pain or helping them excel at their sport or their task, just on the longevity side of things. And then it started to pull me in the direction of there's so much more than the training and recovery aspect when it comes to optimizing your lifestyle, and just being happy day to day and feeling like you are thriving. And so I started to take the dive down, let's look into sleep. And so I started really studying sleep, and then I started studying nutrition and getting different certifications for those. And so that has led me to now I am currently enrolled in the Integrative Health Practitioner course with Dr. Stephen Cabral. I am just about done with level 1. I have a few more lessons left, and I'll be moving into level 2, which will be more on the functional medicine lab work side of things. So I can actually, have people tell me what's going on with them, and then try to get to the root cause of that based on their labs and then specific protocols. So I kind of do a mix. I still do personal training. I have clients. I do online nutrition and lifestyle coaching remotely. And then I teach some durability classes around Austin at different gyms.
So let's talk a little bit about durability. I think that's a fun place. There are certainly less people playing in the durability world than other worlds. How did the path morph from training to durability?
Yeah, great question. So I became a member at Onnit maybe 8 years ago now. And Onnit is a really awesome gym in Austin that was kind of known for the functional training. They had steel maces and steel clubs and kettlebell circuits, and they had durability, what they called was their through line. And that was the first place I was really introduced to mobility specific training and the idea of really prioritizing our joint health. And they just kind of weaved that into everything they did, which I was an athlete my whole life. I did CrossFit, I coached CrossFit, I did multiple other types of certifications, and it was unlike anything I had ever experienced. I feel like for the first time, it was less about being really intense and much more about being really intentional, and prioritizing joint health and, optimizing movement patterns so that you can continue to push at whatever you want to and make gains, if you will, for as long as possible without injury kind of interrupting that. And I personally was dealing with some knee pain that was diagnosed as arthritis, and I had some wrist pain and different things going on that I kind of just took as somewhat normal, which I think a lot of people do, even though I was in my young 20s at the time, or mid 20s. And I slowly but surely started to recognize that pain would go away when I focused on doing the durability stuff. And so what that meant was there was a class that they offered that was an hour every week I would go to that was just the mobility, durability. And I kind of refer to that because maybe people are more familiar with mobility, but durability is the same thing. It's just maybe you're doing some foam rolling, maybe you're doing some tennis ball SMR stuff, maybe you're doing some breath work along with some kind of low intensity body weight movement or mobility specific training. So it kind of varied from class to class. But once I implemented that in my schedule, what was interesting is the hardest part of implementing it was actually, we're so used to the society that's go do more, right? Go, go, go. So it was really hard for me to take that Wednesday off and do durability. I felt like I was missing out on a good workout. And then after a couple of months of it, I realized wow, my body feels so much better. I feel much more recovered in my workouts. I'm actually, feeling stronger, leaner, whatever it was, while my joints were feeling better. So I just became a believer in it basically through the practice, even though I was hesitant. And I will give credit to my husband, Christian, because he was coaching at Onnit and he was one of the durability coaches. And even just through our friendship at first, he kind of convinced me that it's something I should do. So I went because of that relationship, I guess, too. And I was interested in it. I knew there was value. But the more I did it, the more I just truly became a believer. And then I did the certifications that they offer through durability and led me to functional range conditioning and animal flow and just other modalities of body weight, joint strength training that I had never done in the past. So that's how I really got into it, was just that exposure and the commitment to trying it long enough to where I felt the benefits. And since then, I don't have any of that pain anymore. And my approach to training is very different. And then I just realized there are so many people living in pain, whether that's physical or mental. And the durability class is a great way to get them out of pain and kind of get out of the go, go, go society that we live in and just focus on decompression, focus on working in versus working out, right? And kind of those recovery modalities. So that's what really drew me to it.
I love that.
I want to push back on the idea of the capacity to go. I think that there's two ways in which we can work on ourselves. We can work on literally creating internal function, right? And that could be psychological, it could be physical, it could be metaphysical, whatever, however you want to define the inner workings within you. But I think there's a cross wire within society that says if you're not working on your aesthetics and your external appearance, you are not going. And I think if we're talking about the durability of the human organism, there's a reality of you only have so many potential repetitions. You have a finite number of heartbeats within you. And if you extend yourself utilizing those heartbeats, they will go away. So I just want to offer, because I think we tend to think about work as how, especially when we're talking about the body, it is a thing that is very hard to psychologically even grasp for people. But there's the capacity to work on things that aren't external, that's not physique related. And I think the reality is those things are way more important. CrossFit has its own, there's an aesthetic that is required within CrossFit. And it's probably detrimental to the athlete is a reality. I mean, I think that you can have a higher functioning body and a higher functioning mobility range without having 3% body fat. How does that fit? How does the idea of external, internal work fit within your idea of the athlete?
What was that last part? My idea of a what kind of athlete?
Durable athlete.
Durable athlete. Okay, so keep asking the questions if I'm not going the right direction with it.
Yeah, for sure.
To me, being durable means the ability to withstand wear and tear. And for me, it also means to be able to feel better, perform better, and live better. So that is whatever someone wants to do. That is whether I want to go on a walk today and feel good, or I want to sign up for some sort of competition, or if I just want to be happy in my relationships. Like it could be inside the gym, outside the gym, whatever it is. To me, durability is the practice of going within through physical fitness, though. So it's almost like a moving meditation, which could be many things for people, but it's a daily check-in with my body, whether that's 5 to 10 minutes in the morning or prior to a workout or in the evening at the end of the day, just to check in. I think at least I was in a place where I was just doing, right? To really open up that door to not just sitting down and journaling, but through movement, through actually focusing on how am I feeling from the inside out and what direction do I need to go today based on what I'm feeling. So for me, it's just, it goes from internal to external, of like stopping, asking yourself how you're feeling, going through specific movements and actually checking in with different joints in your body. How's your energy today? Where's your mind at today? Like just pausing long enough to do that. And then I feel like from there, we can move forward with a better plan each day of how, whatever it is we want to do, whether again, that's rest and recovery that day or physical performance. So it just, durability to me, and a durable athlete is someone who prioritizes their physical and mental well-being and understands that in order to thrive, there has to kind of be this conversation daily with ourselves around how are we doing, right? And is my plan the right plan for me today? And do I need to adjust? Do I need to adapt? What do you guys think?
Did you say conversation with the body?
Yes. The way we were taught, I believe, I feel like Shane Hines or John Wolfe brought this up in the certifications, but if you've ever been with someone, you have a significant other, or you have family you go home to, oftentimes, you guys could come in from work and you may have had a crazy day. You have no idea what that other person is going through. And you just walk in and you start dumping your stuff on them, or you're really excited, but yet they've had a terrible day. Like it's just a miscommunication sometimes around how are you doing today? Before we move forward, let's check in. Like, how was how are you doing? Like, do you need some support today? So with our own selves, being able to have that conversation with our body and say, how am I doing today? How do I feel this morning? Am I feeling more stiff? Do I feel really good? Do I feel really happy today? Am I sad? Like, what do I need today based on these few minutes of going within and figuring out the best direction for me that day? So it's a conversation with our body.
I
think Brian really fits in that world. I would say, I think that, we have total responsibility for our body, and the way in which we use our body ends up providing us feedback. But I don't think that, I think where Brian and I differ on this, and maybe you can come in and mediate this, is that I don't think that there's an intelligence that we are holding two-way communication with. I don't think the body's able to say, hey, this is what I need. Our body can say, hey, this is what I am right now. And then we as the conscious being have the opportunity to shift and mold and adapt what we're doing around what we are. But our body can't say, like, oh, I need whatever. I need 12 push-ups today. Our body can say, this is what I have right now. And then we as a conscious being figure out how to maybe create durability or create response or options around what we actually have available to us. Does that fit within what you're saying, or do you really feel like there's a two-way communication happening?
Great question. Maybe a little bit of both from time to time, but I will say that I guess for the average person, it's just, I coached a lot of group classes and a lot of one-on-one, personal training sessions too. And people would just come in, they're like, oh, I'm fine. And then this thing hurts, but like, I'm fine. Let's just keep doing, whatever's planned. And to me, it's teaching them that like, no, let's take that information, whether it's, this is how I am today. My shoulder hurts. So rather than doing what was on my plan, I'm going to adapt and change based on that need. I'm not just going to skip over it and keep going forward and not address what needs to be addressed. And again, that can be emotionally as well. Maybe you're just, you're trying to skip over something and keep going. So maybe it's not your body being like, it's speaking to me. This is what I need. But more so us building that awareness and then developing the skill of adapting after that.
The discernment of what's right and what's wrong. Yeah, exactly. If I may, I think there's a big piece here that so I spent a large portion of my life, what for no other better way to explain it is being numbed out, right? Whether that's through television or through alcohol and drugs or through social interactions, whatever it may be. I spent a big portion of my life not being able to feel my body. And some of that was intentional and some of that was unconscious. I think it was a combination of both. And there's no reason to go down that path of why. But what I'm really trying to get at here is now there's like Patrick was kind of alluding to, there is a conversation that my body is, how I look at it is the body is speaking to me. And it speaks through energy. It speaks through sensation. It speaks through vibration. It speaks through inflammation. It speaks through lack of inflammation. And then there's also then the ego part, right? The ego, which is what Natalie was kind of referring to, is can you then discern what the ego wants you to do, the push, the going and the doing, or can you then listen to what the message is from the body of what it's telling you, right? It's not actually saying words. It's communicating through feelings, through sensation, right? Through hot and cold, through sweat, all of those type of things. And then with that, there's another component too that is also kind of bleeding into all of this, and that's what does it feel like when you're giving the body what it wants or what you think it wants? Because a lot of times those sensations are not going to be what your ego wants to or accurately is going to give it, right? So there's another component to that. Which comes with experience, comes with getting to know your physical body. And everybody's body is different, and that's something that I think is important when Natalie, when you're working with people. It's like you'll see some people that will just push. They'll ignore those little messages, and then that's where injuries can come along, right? So there's a balance there. I think we're all kind of explaining in our own little unique way.
Yeah, I love what you said. I think, I know Christian and I say this a lot, but like giving people what they want with what they need, because a lot of times people do want to come in and get a quote unquote hard workout or, to be pushed, but maybe they need to slow down a little bit that day. And although they may leave feeling good, sometimes people feel like they're not doing enough unless they are sweating, right? Or, really struggling to get through the workout and breathe or whatever it is. So yeah, I think it's educating people around the positives for both of those and when they can come into play. I also like what you said about inflammation in the body. That brings me back to the nutrition side of things and sleep. Like I'm working with people every single day who are telling me that like, I have brain fog. I'm waking up without any energy. I'm feeling really stressed. I'm bloated. But yet they're kind of just ignoring those messages from their body. Their body's trying to tell them something, or they just are that thing, however you want to look at it. And instead of changing what they're doing, they're just continuing to do the same thing. They're eating the same foods, not getting to bed on time, whatever it may be. So they just wake up and they feel terrible again the next day, And so that's what led them to me originally, is to say, okay, I need to change something, but that's harder for some people to do than others, even when you start to point those things out and say like, okay, we're going to cut this out, or we're going to make this switch. But yeah, I think like most illness and disease is coming from inflammation in the body from all different angles, just overstressed. So I look at durability as that way to like help people de-stress, because I'm working with people day in and day out that are, whether it's through the environment, whether it's emotional stress, whether it's the food they're putting in their body, or sometimes overtraining, lack of sleep, whatever it may be, they are just very inflamed or very overstressed.
It's like that holistic point of view then is what you're kind of reviewing there. It's taking into consideration all of the things, not just one or two components of the human experience. That's super important when you're working with clients, right? And you're working with other human beings. I'm a yoga teacher as well. So one of the things I like to mention in the classes when I'm teaching is not only do what feels right in your body, but listen to the breath, right? And the breath, allow the breath to be the guide through the shapes that you make in your body. If the breath is becoming tight and restricted, then there's that information for you to back off, right? And then if the breath is smooth and flowing, then there's more opportunity for you to expand and lean into whatever shape you're in, or whatever posture you're looking at in that specific moment. So it's a practice, right? It's learning how to give the body exactly what it needs and when it needs it. And every day, this is something that I've learned so recently, is like every day is so dang different. And like I have a specific morning routine that I do every single morning, but that morning routine now, I'm 43. I'm just starting to like really understand that like that morning routine may not be what I need every morning. In fact, I know it isn't. But see, you can see my thought process is sort of butting up against that already. So again, I think it's important to kind of take those and do those daily check-ins, like you were saying. And I like how you incorporate the holistic sort of viewpoint in what you're doing with your clients. Is that something that you've always sort of leaned into, or is that something that you've just sort of progressing to now?
I would definitely say over the last 3 to 4 years, it's been something that I've leaned into more. Prior to that, I knew it was important as far as like, again, just understanding that we're more than just the training that day and the physical body, but like what, how did their day go? What is going on at home? How stressed are they? Obviously, sometimes people have specific goals, whether it's performance or physique. And we all know that training is just a part of that, right? They have to be doing the sleep side or food prep or whatever it may be to reach their goals. They have to have some sort of awareness around that. And for some people it's easier, some people it's harder, right? And so the more I started to learn, I love learning, and I like learning for myself and also for my clients, the more I just feel like I can't let that go. Like once I learn something, I like to implement it and try it myself. And then I like to share that information with others. And so, yeah, I just think the more I've gone down that rabbit hole, if you will, the more I feel like I'm doing a disservice if I'm not at least making people somewhat aware of those things. I understand I can't necessarily dump it on people all at once, but my approach is often like, let's chat, let's figure out where you're at. And then let's just pick 1 or 2 things to work on right now. Maybe it's just coming into the gym the first time, or just waking up and drinking water, right? Like making sure we're hydrating enough, something simple. Let's do that for a couple weeks. Let's check back in. Now let's add the next thing. Let's check back in. So I'm not going to just change someone's entire life right away. I like to try to just kind of habit layer as we go and slowly kind of start continuing to educate them, I guess, as we go around like, okay, now let's look at your sleep. How's that going? And oftentimes I find that people are like, oh yeah, like, this is what I do right before bed. And then I realize maybe that's why they're not sleeping great. So we make some tweaks there to their kind of nighttime routine or whatever it is. now their sleep has improved. So there are just so many pieces to why we may feel the way we feel day in and day out, or if we're making progress in the direction we want to go. And so I just love helping people kind of with all of it, because I just think it's important. I feel like if I'm just talking about one thing, although there are specialists in certain things, and that's great, for my clients, I try to let them know that, like, even if we're just doing one thing from each of these, so if this is your training bucket and you're now training 3 days a week, and this is your nutrition bucket and we're now, eating more well-rounded meals, and this is your sleep bucket, and this, you're getting 8 hours every night, and then this is your relationship bucket and you're planning an outing once a month with friends. Like, I find that they are happier beings than if we were to just focus on one thing and we just neglect everything else.
For sure.
So very holistic in that sense.
I love that.
So to dive a little bit deeper in that, because I think that can cut double-edged. I spend a lot of time working on the conversation between depth and novelty. So I think that for many people, depth is the let's say novelty is the antithesis of depth. And what I see a lot of people doing is surface level awareness of one subject, surface level awareness of another subject, surface level awareness of another subject, and feeling as if they're progressing, but because they never actually create the novelty by digging into the depth of an individual subject, there's not a significant amount of progression. There's a significant amount of movement and jumping from topic to topic and jumping from solution to solution. But until you really ground yourself in the full depth of a specific area, I don't think, there's a reality in which you leave an awful lot on the table, an awful lot of potential benefit. But how do you balance the ideas of depth and novelty when you are approaching things holistically, or again, another societal problem, when we're constantly presented with new information and new data, and we want to learn and show that we can accumulate knowledge in that societal pressured way?
Good question. Right now, my mind is going towards, I definitely have a team of people around me too that I refer out to for specific things. So if I'm working with someone who maybe I'm getting the feeling that they don't need a little bit of like this and that, and they just need some PT work or something, like I will refer out to a PT, right? But the clients I'm working with often are wanting to, simple as it is, they're wanting to lose weight. So I'm having those conversations rather than going into every single client and just saying, well, I don't know you at all, and I'm just going to start you at the same place I would start everyone else. I'm going to have an initial consultation with you and figure out, what does your life look like? What does your schedule look like? What is your stress like? Like, I want to know what your day-to-day looks like, because for someone, they might be able to start, going to the gym 3 days a week for an hour. And for someone else, that may not be feasible. So my approach is less around like, I'm going to give this one person everything. And it's more of, I guess, using all of my past experience, mostly in personal training and the mobility training and all of that, but also the nutrition and lifestyle side of things, to help people make small changes to get to their goals. So again, for some people, like, they may benefit from just going from a morning walk, and that may be where we start. And they may start working with a personal trainer, or I give them a program and they're following that. But also their diet is terrible, right? Like, and they're suffering because of that. Inflammation in their body, again, not able to lose weight. So if I can just give them some tips there, I find that is valuable. So for me personally, I'm not trying to say I am the expert in everything, but I am wanting to help people understand that they have to take that holistic view if they are wanting to optimize their life. I don't believe that people can do that through neglecting everything else and just focusing on one thing per se, I guess. So I'm trying to be that coach. Now, I will say what I am working towards is, again, that functional medicine lab work side of things. I want that to be my sole thing. Of people come to me, I'm able to kind of figure out what is going on, recommend specific labs, interpret the labs, and then give them to some of our other coaches to follow through those protocols. So I'm kind of the person they go to for functional medicine lab work. So at some point I will kind of step back from doing any of the training, but also just business wise right now, like I have some clients that all I do is personal training. So I'm not nutrition coaching or doing lifestyle coaching with them. Like they're just coming to me for the training. And I may have conversations, you know, as we're training around how's life, how's your diet, right? But they're paying me for the training, and that's what I show up and present to them. But the people coming to me that are remote clients looking to lose weight, like nutrition alone is not always the only answer. Sometimes there's other stressors in their life that we need to address, or other things that are going on in their life that we need to address. So I feel like it's my duty to build awareness around those things and to help figure out where those little loopholes might be that they're not really paying attention to.
Let me try that. So back out of your world and just in the world in which kind of we're conversing about, there's an idea which you kind of touched on, which is like, give people what they want and slip them what they need. And I'm wondering if that's the appropriate approach for people, because oftentimes what people want is dramatically hurtful for their actual goals. Oftentimes people, what they want is they want to sweat a lot, and that creates a faux reward system within them. And that may be the exact opposite thing of what their body needs if they have some adrenal stress, if they have some issues that are related to fatigue. And I think one of the challenges is when we go into fields like this and we end up interconnecting commerce, we have to make compromises. So excluding your specific scenario, do you think that there's a possibility that people providing this type of service, rooting themselves to what is best for their people, and you can define people however you want to define people, and not bending the knee to the oftentimes counterproductive desires of human psychology? Do you think there's a role or a potential possibility for people within that world to actually plant a flag and say, this is who I am, this is what I do, and build and have the capability of building a community around that flag that they planted?
And so would that person be someone who is wanting to more so?
Well, you could plant a flag in any way, right? Like I would just say that I think what often happens is people teach handstands in yoga classes because people want to do handstands. And we then end up with an awful lot of humoral head pain because we have a lot of humoral head dysfunction, and we haven't properly set the proximal head within the shoulder joint, and then we're upside down and we're in an inversion. So what I'm saying is, so let's say, can a yoga teacher teach primary shapes, offer primary shapes exclusively, and within the depth and the continual expanded awareness within primary yogic shapes, develop a community? Like, can someone take something without trying to get into the fluff and still extract the benefit for people while providing everyone what they need? That's kind of my question. Can you plant a flag, and can you just be you within that flag without allowing the psychology of and human emotion to push you and force you into different corners where you may have to offer something that you might not feel is the most ideal thing, because you know that there are people who are going to be attracted to that? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think that is possible. I think there are people that are not going to want to be a part of that community.
For sure, absolutely.
For sure, yeah.
You know, that's happened a lot, even in, again, if someone's coming to me for training, or Christian too, and specifically, I'm thinking about Christian a lot because he works in like the basketball specific, like strength and conditioning world. And you just see so much out there of, again, like using these ladders and sand drills and like all these crazy techniques of like people just going. And a lot of times we will come in or he will come in with more like, if you want to call it easier tech, I don't know. I think it's simple, but not easy stuff. And some people are just turned off from that. They think
Primary.
it's not what they need. Right. And it's like the core of human movement. This is what we need. And you're wanting to skip from A to Z and be really good at Z without being good at A. So I do think that you can plant that flag and that you can be really successful and you will get people to buy into that. But I also think you're going to get a lot of people that think they don't need it and they're not going to be attracted to it because they are going to go for the fluff.
Yeah. I like that. I like that you say that. I guess my point in bringing that up is I wish more people were willing to say I'm not for everybody, right? Like this is what I do and I do what I do exceptionally well. And if you don't want to be involved in that, cool. I don't really care if you don't want to be involved in what I do. That's your loss, not mine.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I do think that is important. And I have experienced that, right? And you have working at a gym in the past, now I work more so from home and we have a garage gym, but like you're around different coaches and people have different styles and clientele, they are attracted to those styles. And you just have people that don't like you for your style. You have other people that fully buy into that style, right? And even though each of us may believe our style is the best, like they're very different. And it's okay if people aren't ready for that, I guess I would say, right? And just, I think. Yeah,
you're more diplomatic than I
am. What I think too, Patrick, brother, is I think you're kind of describing yourself in a little bit, man, because he's got this wonderful yoga community that he's cultivated over the years, and you do a lot of. And so do I. But I mean, what I'm talking about is the specific people that you teach to and teach for. There's a certain style that you teach. You're very on point and specific with the primary shapes, right? And within those shapes, though, you allow people to explore within the capacity of their own framework. And I think that's something that a lot of teachers, trainers, Natalie, that don't necessarily, I'm not saying you don't, Natalie, I'm just saying in general that don't stick to.
For sure.
It's something that can provide extreme value, particularly with segments of the population who, like myself, may have not been comfortable in their bodies before. May have an aspect of feeling intimidated or caught off guard in certain scenarios, right? So there's a blend of that really works well. And what I also think is, and I think, Natalie, you're very much in the same scope here, is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is that you allow people then to explore their individuality within the Durable Athlete platform, right? So you're giving them these tools that can be utilized in a bunch of different atmospheres or arenas or specific scenarios, and then within that you're allowing them to explore and to grow accordingly. So there's planting the flag, like Patrick was so referring to. There's a part of that's. People like that, like Instagram feel, right? That snappy, like handstand type of feel, if we're talking about that, right? Or that we're talking about it in basketball, like a crossover dribble, or like, Natalie, did you play sports in growing up or in college or something?
I did.
Yeah.
I played a lot of sports growing up, but I played some college basketball.
Yeah, there you go. So you understand a crossover. Yeah. So like that flashy move, right? Like, and so balancing the ebbs and flows of that can be where the true medicine is at. Like that's what people, and oftentimes let's be completely frank. A lot of people aren't out there for the quote unquote medicine or to really improve the durability of their body or their athleticism. They're there just to post a story on Instagram or to tell their friends they were at a yoga class where the teacher always does handstands. I can't do a handstand, but gosh darn it, I'm there every day, you know? So whatever the case may be, I think there's like a little bit of a balance there that we're talking about, which is something that we're still as a movement society, we're still trying to reach.
Yeah. I'm curious from you, Patrick, too, what you have experienced.
So I'm like everything that I do. I mean, Brian can tell you this on Secret Plant. Like everything I do is about planting a flag and saying, like, here's what we do. We do this really well. We do this exceptionally well. And you can either be on board or not. But we're going to continue to do what we do. And honestly, I have people approach me all the time and ask me how I built, like, how do I keep building these communities? And the reality is I just do me. Like, that's the only thing I know how to do. And I just do me. And I don't care if people don't like me is like a really big thing. Is like, if people don't like me, I'm very okay with that. You don't have to like me, but I'm authentically me in every interaction that I have. And that either works or it doesn't work. But I think part of the things that I've learned about building a community is pulling the weeds. And if you allow someone to be in your community who doesn't fit, they will spread the weeds. The weeds have to be removed. And I think the faster you remove the weeds from your community, the stronger your community can be. So that was one of the primary lessons I learned in the first yoga community I built. Is I tried to nurture and offer a place for everyone. And it didn't matter if you were gossipy or you were bullshitty or you were etc. And once I learned that lesson, it was like, oh, we don't do gossip here. Like, you gossip, you're gone. Like, any of those, like, if you come in and your role is to create drama, there's 1,000 other places that will love to have you. It's just not here. So to me, it's worked out really well. But I think there's a atypical component to me, which is that I really don't care if I'm not liked. And that's not to say that I'm like, I think most people would assume that everyone likes me, but they don't. A lot of perceptions of people and realities of people are very different things. Brian can tell you, like, I'm very much a recluse, and I am very much, when I am in public, I am very much in public, and when I am not in public, I am very much not in public. And those two worlds are very, very divergent, and that's why I live in the middle of nowhere. But I think if more people just showed up as who they are, they would find that they are legitimately magnets to people who want to be associated with what they're doing. And they would, the communities that people are building would be more successful, and the people would be more successful long term. I just think when you compromise, it's a short-term transaction that ends up having a long-term negative detriment on both your community and what you're doing. That has been my experience.
I 100% agree with that. I feel like authenticity is super important. And yeah, like knowing who you are and what you want to offer. I would do the same thing if I had my own space, I guess. Like I would definitely kick some people out if they were gossip. That energy can't be there, right? And I want people who are there for the right reasons. And yeah, I don't want other people running the show necessarily either. Of like, I want to cultivate a space that is comfortable for everyone and not have some people come in that are starting drama in that sense. So I agree with that. And I do agree also on, yeah, just in what you said, like planting your flag and saying, this is what I do really well. I think that's a great idea too. You know, I think different things work for different people, but I think at the core of it, you have to be authentic, and you can't be trying to please everyone because you're not going to please everyone. For sure. That's a fact. Does not matter who you are. Someone hates you. 100% doesn't matter. Yeah. I mean, yeah, with the durability stuff and kind of incorporating it, not only in just the durability class, that was more so like people know they're coming for recovery. When I was teaching more classes that were more fitness based, I would do a lot more like thinking about like lengthening the front line and strengthening, the posterior chain, but like doing it and maybe incorporating the animal flow, like doing it in ways that I realized for me and other people were much safer, still challenging, but more beneficial to the body. And there were a lot of people that was so uncomfortable for them, they hated it. Like it's just, it's also hard, like sometimes the simple stuff is harder than
definitely
lifting a bunch of weight. It's like moving your body weight can be way harder than lifting the barbell or whatever. And there were just people that did not want anything to do with that. It was either uncomfortable, not the pace they wanted, but yeah, I wasn't going to change. Right.
Like we can do a vinyasa flow like 100 times over, and there's so many people that can do that. But sit and hold like Warrior 2 for 20 breaths, right? And notice what comes up. I mean that 20 breaths is a long time. I probably wouldn't hold them for 20 breaths, but maybe. but you see the point, right? There's that simplicity that can be super beneficial for people who are not used to that. I think you touched on this. Go ahead, Patrick.
Well, okay, let me get this in, because Natalie, I think this is an interesting question. I always trying to estimate this percentage, and it's on simplicity. What percentage of the general population do you think can get into a bottom squat?
Great question.
Like a yogi squat?
Yeah. So like deep,
okay.
Like if you're using Olympic weightlifting, like deep squat, like full squat.
Got it.
Are there studies on this? Do you know the number?
I don't know the number. I'm just curious what your estimation is.
I was like, man, I want to find this. I don't know, depending on the age range, maybe that is a factor, because I've also worked with a lot of youth and kids where obviously from a young age it's easy, but as we get older, let's just say 30 and above, I don't know, like 50%. I don't know. I feel like if I'm having people come in, maybe half of them can get into a squat and half can't. But as we age, that gets worse. So that's kind of what I found. And sometimes obviously people can be in their 80s and still super mobile depending on what they have been doing. But I definitely work with a lot of people who can't. So maybe it's also the people that come to me. I don't know what percentage y'all see, but
I think that's generous. I think I mean, you're dealing with people who are like looking for mobility, right? I would say it's probably so Americanized, right? I mean, if we get into third world countries, everyone can, because they have to defecate. But if we're talking about America, my guess is it's more like 20%. I'm always amazed when someone can get into bottom squat, and I'm like,
for sure. Okay,
well, that's a win.
I think you're right. I think I'm pulling my influence. I kind of left this out, but I taught third grade, so I'm also thinking about like third graders too. Middle school, high school.
We lost your audio.
Oh, for me? Can you hear
me? Now you're good. I think you might have just had a hand over a microphone or something.
I think I did. Sorry. Basically, working with people of all ages, I think, is giving me that perception. But if I'm just thinking about the adult population, I would probably agree with you there, depending on the age. Again, I feel like it is
that for sure.
Like it's super rare.
Yeah, it is.
And I would say like that literally is as basic as you can get, right? That is when we were talking about a primal mobility awareness, that is a traditional shape of human restoration, is to be seated in a bottom squat. And I always talk, so we used to do a thing where we just sit in bottom squat for 10 minutes, and the conversations you have with people like that sit in bottom squat for 10 minutes is like, you're going to torture me. Like, just set me on a rack and extend my joints until they pop. This is not possible. So I always work from that, like, here's the most basic human shape. And if we could do this basic human shape, right, how much different is the sacral lumbar connection? Like, how much different is the thoracic joint positioning? How much different is the anterior posterior flexion extension range? All of those things that are like cued and traditionally reset within the human body don't happen anymore, because we've created ways to make that shape easier.
Backful.
So like going into furniture then, because I'm trying to push. So my bedroom, the mattress itself is compressed straw. So it's a traditional Japanese style mattress. It is essentially the same density as wood. And I'm trying to talk my girlfriend into allowing me to make that the guest room bedroom. And
no,
like,
that's where I stay.
That was her response. No one's ever going to stay here.
Yes.
I'm like, but think about the benefits they could have. How much impact do you think the furniture or the lifestyle we've created within our home impacts our capacity to move?
Yeah, good question.
Tremendously.
Yeah.
I do talk about this quite a bit. I feel like I talk about like creating an environment that sets you up for success is something that I'll bring up with clients.
Yeah, I love that.
As simple as, are you sitting in a chair all day at your desk, which a lot of people are doing, or do you even have maybe a walking treadmill? Can you stand, do you have a standing desk, right? Like, can we switch it up? Whenever you are off of work, instead of sitting on the couch, can you get on your carpet and do some shin boxes or do some foam rolling or stretch a little bit while you're watching TV, which is what most people will do. So just trying to talk about like, one, how is your work environment set up? Because that's what we're doing, most people, most of the day, right? For a big chunk of the day, I'll say. And then from there, what are you doing after? Which a lot of people are sitting on a couch, right? Many people are for long hours, and then they're in bed. So you definitely have to talk about, what is your furniture situation? Are you ever in a low squat? Are you ever in a shin box position? Are you on the floor? Are you standing? Or are you just in that same fixed sitting position day in and day out? I think it definitely impacts how your body functions. And I love what you said, sitting in a squat for 10 minutes. It's a great challenge for people. And that's the epitome of simple, not easy. It's like
exactly.
so simple, but people would rather, again, sprint over to that 300-pound barbell and lift that than sit in a squat for 10 minutes. And that's where you would give people what they need. You know what I mean? And so it's like, let's make them do this. I don't know. It's definitely something I think about. I think about just people's jobs in general. My brother he did work construction for a while, stopped going to the gym, and was one of the most fit people I knew. Like, just didn't really care so much about his health, but would work all day, manual labor, and was really fit. He just recently switched over to more of a desk job, and kind of like half and half will go on site. And the first thing I was like, now you're going to have to go back to the gym, or like seek it out, and he said within the first month, he's like, I've already noticed I got to go into the gym. Like, so yeah, our daily movement, how we're sitting, how much we're moving, or we're stagnant, has a huge impact on how we feel. So I think looking at, what is your situation at your desk, or what is your situation when you're eating dinner, or when you're relaxing at night, like that is definitely something I get people to think about. I try to get people to like get off the couch at night and onto the floor.
Yes. There's one of the most interesting observations you can have as a yoga teacher, and most probably in what you do as well, Natalie, is watching your, when you taught larger classes, I would imagine, but when you watch the students come into class and then try to navigate a comfortable seat, like on the floor, like Sukhasana, a simple cross-legged seat, and watch them try. And I'm not laughing at the student. I'm making an observation here that it can be challenging for people simply to transition from that walking, standing upright position into a comfortable seat on the floor. It's like speaking a foreign language to a lot of people. It's just very difficult to master that, or not even to master it, but to become comfortable sitting in that way.
Getting on and off the ground is extremely challenging for people.
Exactly right.
That might be the workout for the day. I've had clients where that's a challenge. I'm like, we're going to do a lot of like getting on and off the ground. That's part of your workout. Why would I load them up with anything else when that at the foundation of human movement is not functioning well, is kind of that. But and you don't want to make them feel bad about it by any means, right? But you want to make them feel more empowered by being able to move freely with their own body. Like
100%. Yes.
Freedom, that's thriving, right? And that will set them up for long-term success down the road. Like I don't know if anybody wants to say they like can't squat themselves, you know, like get on and off the ground when they're in their 80s or whatever, or they need a walker. Like, I feel like most people want to be living with that freedom of movement and ability to like take care of themselves.
No,
Required
But
for
if we don't
independence.
practice that, how do we get there?
no.
For sure. Well, if you start doing this stuff, right? You said you're working with some younger athletes, right? If we start doing this stuff, you don't have to learn it because it's inherent within us, right? We lose it at some point. If people were dedicated, I've talked about the dream, and it's such a hard thing, it's such a hard thing because as we're developing as humans physically, the literal neural connections are not fully formed yet, right? So we're learning to move. And so really quickly, and this is very tangential for the very end of the podcast, but when babies are born, right, they start moving around, but they have no awareness of the synapses that are firing, that are creating movement. So there are neural connections firing, they are creating electric currents through the body, and muscles are moving that's creating movement. That's why babies move so sporadically. And then eventually, over repeated neural feedback, right, it is like, oh, this happened, my finger moved, and we hardwire that in. Well, that's happening as we age, and pretty consistently until you're fully grown. It's why when you hit those growth spurts during your youth, you have periods of time where you're remarkably clumsy because you have to relearn how to move in this new geometry of your body. So if we could somehow get the knowledge of movement into young athletes. So there are so many things that I can't do because as a young athlete, I damaged myself because I had the physical capability to do anything, but I had no awareness over what that meant. And I certainly had no awareness over the long-term implications of being like, well, forget this. We're going as hard as we can every single moment of every single game, every single day, 6 hours a day. And eventually you're like, well, that doesn't work anymore. So if we could get 12-year-olds, right, to start developing the capacity for awareness within the movement, so that there is a retraction of the humeral head as a baseball releases from the hand, and you don't have that full proximal head dislocation every time you whip your arm through a throwing zone as hard as you can. The young athlete transitioning into either further athlete or no longer further athlete would be remarkably different. So it's rad to hear that you are working with younger athletes. Is there anything you're doing on the cognitive side that you found that's effective? Because I find that to be the hardest thing in working with young athletes is, well, they can do everything, but how do we develop the awareness of what actually is right within the body? It's generally pretty easy with older athletes because it's like, this hurts, this doesn't hurt. Do the one that doesn't hurt.
Yeah. It is more challenging with kids, and I do work with some kids. I feel like y'all would love chatting with Christian. I'm just going to put that out there too. Y'all should have him on.
Yeah, right.
He daily more than I do right now. But yeah, I just love what you're saying though. An idea of like, I think about it all the time. I wish someone would have taught me the skills that we now teach people and children when I was younger, because I would have avoided a lot of injury, or I probably would have performed better or had been a better mover into my adulthood. It's basically like when you're a kid, you have coaches who tell you, okay, we're going to do suicides on the court today, right? Or like you're sprinting back and forth, but no one teaches you how to sprint and stop and change directions. They just tell you to go faster. Whereas what we're doing is teaching you how to land, how to stop, how to change direction. We're looking at those angles and what's happening and really focusing on foot, ankle, knee, hip. Where are you feeling that? What is bothering you? Okay, where's that coming from? Let's watch your movement. Why? Whatever it may be. We're kind of breaking that down and then teaching kids or athletes how to be better movers, which makes you typically better at your sport, right? Which is what we're working with. So it is more challenging to get kids to buy into, like, they just want to have fun. So then it's the game of, for younger kids, again, giving them what they need and doing specific drills and trying to make it a bit more fun for them, you know, and like keeping them engaged. Now, as they get to, I'd say like high school, you can be more serious, but if they're like in elementary school and junior high, sometimes there's like a game element that you have to be mindful of with it, but still teaching them proper technique. Like, this is what we are looking for while we're playing this game, right? Whether that's seeing it where people like, you know, chase the balloon and they're running around a cone, and like, those can be fun games, but this is how we're going to stop when we do it, right? Let's practice that first, and then we're going to change direction this way. So yeah, I think that's like a whole nother skill set as a coach, to be really patient and to be able to break things down in a way that makes sense to maybe younger kids and youth athletes. And then also just explaining to them. And honestly, this leads me to like the parents, because to be honest, sometimes the kids are bought in and they can feel the difference. And the parents are like, well, we've heard this a lot. Like, I want to go train with this person doing the Vertimax trainer, which whatever, if you do that, but like, that's fine. And that can be great. But again, it's like, that's that bright, shiny object that looks really cool. And maybe someone looks really cool on social media doing that.
Yeah.
But like, what is that making them better at? Like, you're just making them work hard. You're not making them move any better, or you're not fixing that issue that keeps popping up, which is their knee hurts. You know what I mean? It's like strapping them to that is not going to fix it. So, oh yeah, I get really passionate about that. But to that point, I feel like the parents sometimes have to understand that, because sometimes it's the kids that are bought in and the parents are like, well, so-and-so is doing this. Why aren't you doing it this way? And it's like, just, if you're coming to me and you're trusting me and people have sent you my way or whatever, like, you have to trust the process. Like, let us do our job, you know what I mean? And trust that this is going to continue to build and get you where you want to go. But again, I'm not just going to give you that bright, shiny object because it looks cool, when like, I know you're not really benefiting from that. So, and you kind of just have to, stick with what you know and believe in, and stay authentic to yourself. And I find that if you're not super confident in that, though, people won't believe you.
I can see that.
Like, because it can be the odd thing, or maybe, again, I don't know if it is more boring to people, whatever. It's not as flashy as cool. Like, you have to really be bought in and have to be very intentional about your coaching so that they fully buy in too. Because if you're just kind of halfway delivering it, they're not going to feel the benefit and be a believer either. Like, so I feel like you have to truly believe in what you're doing and kind of have that passion every time you're coaching it, because it can be the most simple movement, but I need someone to give me their all. Like, it has to be intentional. And that's a big thing, I'm sure, in what you guys do, is like, there's a difference between going through the motions and intentional movement, right? 100%. And at the core, I need this to be really intentional, because the experiences and the adaptations are extremely different if it's intentional or going through the motions. Like, intention is kind of everything. So yeah, that's a tough question when we go back to just thinking about kids and the cognitive challenges there and keeping them engaged and how you're teaching to them. But yeah, I love that conversation. I don't know, I don't know if I have all the answers, but
if you do ever have all the answers, please reach
out
to us, because we have a lot of questions.
But if you guys have some ideas, yeah, I think, I don't know if you guys feel that way, but you just have to, to believe in what you're doing. And there's going to be people that don't believe in it, and which is sad to some degree, of like, that it would benefit. But I think if you can get people to experience it, even just a little bit, and feel some positive effects, usually they're at least more curious, right? And they want to come back for more.
100%. I mean, you can go back through your sports career and through your childhood, and you could, I know for me specifically, I could smell or pick out those coaches, or still remember them, who were faking it, who weren't intentional about what they were doing. Like, I had a guy and taught us basketball in middle school. We were running like an NBA offense in like 8th grade. And it was like, wait, what? Like, all this like isolation and all this, like, it was just really like, he was reading out of a book. I remember him like having a book on the sidelines, and he was like coaching us through this book. So he didn't care. And it was a horrible experience. Right. So maybe you want to quit basketball, but that's just one example, right? Especially the youth, you can sniff that out from a mile away. There's no question. There's no question about it.
Definitely. And I'm sure you guys have gone through this, but again, it does go back what we were saying of like being authentic and sometimes there's people who are really successful who really aren't that great at what they do. Like they're not good coaches, and people just, maybe, maybe their personality attracts people, which is part of coaching too. Like people, you have to have people buy into you, right? Like to some degree,
Exactly.
people are coming to you to feel connected. So some people are really great at that, but you can't, like, I feel like Christian and I talked about this, we can't get caught up on the people who like are doing the stuff, who like, we just have to stay in our lane, be authentic, stay in your lane, believe in what you're doing, and understand that like that is enough value, and the right people will come to it.
100%.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. That's the
keep
perfect
doing
place to end it.
Yeah, keep doing what you're doing, Natalie.
Heck yeah.
You're rad. You're rad.
Thanks, y'all too. I wish I could go to your yoga classes.
Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Patrick teaches too somewhere. That's that plug for my forever yoga class.
Awesome. Love that. Hot yoga or not hot yoga? I'm curious.
Say again?
Hot yoga, not hot yoga? Like what kind of yoga?
No heat, no mirrors, just your breath and your body. Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
How, I know you brought this up earlier, but I had this question I didn't say it, but like, how hard is it just to get people to tune into their breath? Speaking of like people being more aware of their body, I find like people aren't even aware if they're breathing or not.
Oh, 100%. An opening, I always like to teach a breath practice in the beginning of class. And that's normally like 3 to 5 minutes. And sometimes I invite them to close their eyes. Sometimes I don't. And it's up to you. It's your choice. But there's when the breath comes up, there's lots of this. There's lots of the eyes darting around. And is this over yet? Can we move? Like it's even, and then to match the breath with sitting still is another challenge. So those two components can be, it's where the work lies, right? Those portions of class can be some of the most impactful. They truly can.
I remember when I first started going to yoga, I like did not like yoga because, and I always just thought I was like, I don't know, all over the place. Like I was like, maybe I have some ADHD or something, right? Like I'm high energy and this is hard. And how are people just sitting here? And like, I would go. And then in the past 2 years, like there was a period of time where I didn't go and then started going again. And it was so much easier for me to slow down, to enjoy all of the quiet moments, to focus on my breath. I remember thinking like, it's not really a personality thing for me. It's a skill. And us just, again, going back to that like stress that we're under and like kind of facade, I guess, of like, we need to be doing more and like getting out of that space and understanding the value of slowing down and feeling those benefits, where I remember just going and being like, I could actually go through the whole thing so peacefully, so calmly, close my eyes, breathe for however long. Like it's a great feeling. So it is interesting to see people and myself shift from that space of not being able to do it and opening the eyes to like getting to that place of being okay with that stillness.
Yeah, I love that.
I feel like it's like the nervous system being in overdrive versus the nervous system being comfortable.
Yeah, 100%. Sympathetic versus parasympathetic. Exactly right. Yeah.
Awesome, y'all.
Yeah. Thank you, Natalie.
Heck yeah. Appreciate the heck out of you jumping on. Really nice to be able to push back on some concepts and have you have the depth of awareness to be able to dive into those things really deeply. So thanks for your time and for being you. Heck yeah.